Hello and welcome back to our journey through the Great Controversy. Today, we delve into a story of courage, faith, and the relentless pursuit of freedom, the story of the Pilgrim Fathers. It all begins in the early days of the Protestant Reformation in England. While the Church of England had broken away from Rome, it still held on to many of its customs and ceremonies. For a growing number of people, this wasn't enough. They longed for a return to the pure, simple worship of the early Christians, guided by the Bible alone. These were the Puritans. Among them was a group known as the Separatists. They believed that the reforms within the Church of England were happening too slowly, if at all. Their conviction was radical for the time. They felt compelled to separate completely from the state church, to worship God according to their conscience. This was a dangerous decision. In those days, the king was the head of the church, and to defy the church was to defy the crown. These brave souls began meeting in secret, often in private homes, barns, or hidden corners of forests. They were hunted, their meetings were broken up, and many were thrown into prison. Their homes were watched day and night. Some were forced to flee, leaving their jobs, their homes, and everything they knew behind. One of these groups, from the village of Scrooby, was led by the faithful pastor John Robinson. He was a man of deep learning and unwavering faith, who chose to cast his lot with these persecuted believers. Facing constant harassment, they made a courageous decision. They would leave England and seek refuge in Holland, a country known for its religious tolerance. But even escaping was fraught with peril. Their first attempt was betrayed. They hired a ship, but the captain handed them over to the authorities. They were paraded through the streets, publicly humiliated and imprisoned. Yet their spirit was not broken. After their release, they tried again, this time with a Dutch captain. The scene was heart-wrenching. The men had already boarded the ship, while the women and children were waiting to join them. Suddenly, the authorities appeared. The captain, fearing for his own safety, set sail, leaving the families stranded on the shore. Imagine the despair of the men on the ship, watching their wives and children being seized by soldiers, helpless to do anything. The women, in turn, were left destitute, not knowing if they would ever see their husbands again. Yet, in this moment of profound trial, their faith held firm. The authorities were at a loss. What could they do with these homeless women and children? They had no homes to return to. Jailing them only brought sympathy to their cause. Eventually, they were set free, and through the kindness of strangers and the providence of God, they made their way to Holland to be reunited with their families. Life in Holland was not easy. They had to learn a new language and new trades. They were farmers, but now they had to become artisans and laborers in the bustling Dutch cities. They worked long hours for little pay. Still, they were grateful. They were free to worship God without fear. Pastor Robinson was their rock, guiding them with wisdom and love. They found joy in their spiritual communion, even amidst the hardships. But as the years went by, new concerns arose. They saw their children being influenced by the casual customs of their Dutch neighbors. The strict observance of the Sabbath was fading. Their children were growing up speaking a different language, and many were leaving the community for a life at sea or in the army. The Pilgrims feared that their unique identity, their faith, and their purpose would be lost. They began to look further across the vast Atlantic Ocean. The idea of a new world, a wilderness where they could build a society from the ground up, based entirely on biblical principles, began to take root. It was a daunting prospect. They would face a dangerous sea voyage and the challenges of an untamed land. But their motive was pure. It wasn't for earthly riches or a quest for power. As their governor, John Carver, later wrote, they were motivated by the glory of God and advancement of the Christian faith. So they made their decision. They would venture into the unknown, trusting in God to guide them. Pastor Robinson, unable to join them on the first voyage, gathered them for a farewell sermon. His words were prophetic and deeply moving. He urged them to keep their minds open to new light from God's Word. He reminded them that the Reformers, Luther and Calvin, were great instruments of God, but they did not receive all the light there was to be given. I am very confident, he said, the Lord has more truth and light yet to break forth out of his holy word. He pleaded with them to follow him no further than he followed Christ, and to receive any truth that might be revealed to them through any other instrument of God. What incredible humility and wisdom! This was the spirit that animated the Pilgrim Fathers, a spirit of progressive truth. Always seeking, always learning, always ready to follow where the Bible led. With prayers and tearful goodbyes, this small band of believers set sail. Their journey on the Mayflower was stormy and treacherous. Sickness was rampant. But through it all, their faith was their anchor. They sang psalms and prayed, their voices rising above the howling wind and crashing waves. When they finally landed on the rocky shores of Plymouth, Massachusetts, in the dead of winter in 1620, the scene was bleak. They faced a desolate wilderness, freezing temperatures, and the threat of unknown dangers. That first winter was brutal. Disease and starvation took a heavy toll, and at one point, only 7 were well enough to care for the sick and bury the dead. Nearly half of their company did not survive. But they did not give up. When the Mayflower was set to return to England in the spring, not a single one of the survivors chose to go back. They had committed themselves to this new land, to their divine mission. They believed God had brought them here for a purpose, and they would not abandon it. They established a government based on just and equal laws for the general good of the colony, the famous Mayflower Compact. They built homes, planted fields, and, most importantly, they built a church. They finally had what they had sacrificed everything for, a place to worship God freely, according to the dictates of their own conscience, with the Bible as their only guide. The story of the Pilgrim Fathers is a powerful testament to the strength of faith in the face of incredible adversity. They laid a foundation of civil and religious liberty that has shaped nations. Their legacy is not just one of survival, but of a profound and unshakable trust in God's providence and a deep love for the truth of His Word. It's a legacy that continues to inspire seekers of freedom to this day. Thank you for joining me for this incredible chapter of history. It's a reminder of the price that was paid for the freedoms we often take for granted. If this story has moved you, please give this video a like and consider subscribing to continue this journey with us. We'll see you in the next chapter. God bless.